Dr. Shefali, welcome to MomTalk. It's an honor to have you and to connect with you.
Same here.
So, Dr. Shefali, as I was watching your just so beautiful interview with Oprah and you genuinely opening up your heart and soul and sharing with us your inner beauty as well as your amazing external beauty, you're just so inspiring to all of us moms, especially those moms who want to have more heightened awareness and to live consciously in today's chaotic world. So can you please, let's open up this conversation on what is conscious parenting for those of our viewers who are interested to dig more in conscious parenting.
Well, it's a complex journey to become a conscious parent, but one can begin in small steps. So I'm just going to describe maybe the first few steps you can take to become a conscious parent. So at the very basic first step of conscious parenting, it is for the parent to become aware that they are having a huge influence on their child. Now, every parent will say, of course, I knew that already, but they know it intellectually. They don't know it in the moment when it's happening. So they will all agree that they have a huge influence on their child if their child is a superstar. They'll be like, of course, I raised them so well. But if the child, for example, is in a bad mood and your child is angry with you, our instinct as parents is to be angry at the kid as if the kid did something wrong. Mm-hmm. In conscious parenting, we learn to take a pause and ask ourselves, did I have something to do with how my child is reacting to me? Mm-hmm. And what is that? And recognizing that and becoming aware of that is the first step to becoming a conscious parent.
Wonderful. And that's a great place to start, especially for us with the Persian, the Iranian heritage, where there's always that fine line with interdependency and codependency. Mm-hmm. And I know you've talked about this before. Can you please open up that conversation and enlighten us? Let us know the difference between the two.
Yes, and this also happens in not just your culture, but in many cultures where tradition and family and the older generations are in charge, you know, those linear cultures where you and I grew up in, there is a great enmeshment. Now, whenever there's hierarchical control from parent to child over the generations, one would think that people are separate because one is on top, one is below, one is on top, one is below. And the beauty of such cultures is also that there's great respect for our elderly. But also the shadow of such a hierarchy is that because the children grow up to be dependent on the adult, right? We're always taught in these cultures that we are quote unquote lesser than, right? The parent is on the top. Yes. The beauty of it, again, is that you give respect. The shadow of it is that you don't really know who you are. You're always defined in context of this relationship and of the culture.
Yes.
Again, there's beauty to it, but there's a big shadow. So let me just talk about the beauty before everyone says that I'm defaming anyone's culture, because my culture is exactly the same.
Yes.
The beauty is that we are close, we know our place, we have great respect for the elderly, we respect tradition, families stay together. Okay, the shadow of it is that growing up, we often have no clue who it is we are outside of the relationship and outside of the context. This can work for many people, but for many people, it can become a suffocation, it can become a source of depression, it can become confusing. Who am I? You know, am I just part of this family? Am I just a daughter? Who am I? This confusion creates enmeshment, not a healthy interdependence. It creates enmeshment or codependency.
Yes.
Everyone is feeling everyone's feelings, and there's no separation between my feelings and your feelings. Everyone is rescuing everyone, and everyone is controlling everyone. You know what happens in these families.
Yes.
So the only way to break out of this is at a price, right? Everything comes at a price. And the price that parents have to pay if they want their children to be healthy and autonomous. In our cultures, these kind of cultures, these collectivist cultures, autonomy is considered a no-no. We are one, we are together. Well, that's beautiful again, but there's a price to pay for even that. The price is that loss of self. So if the parent wants the child to be autonomous, well, then the parent is going to have to let go a little bit of the hierarchy and the control and foster in the child a voice, a sense of self that is separate from the family. For many parents, that's very scary. They don't want to do that. Right? They don't want to let go of control. They don't want to let go of the identity of being this family. So then everyone is enmeshed and everyone is codependent, and that's not healthy in the long run. The way to become healthy is to let go a little bit, let your children raise themselves as autonomous, sovereign beings, autonomous, separate from the culture, so that they know who it is they are outside of the family, outside of the hierarchy, outside of the culture. That is a healthy balance of the I and the we.
Wonderful. Great insight. Now, what happens, and I deal with this a lot in my practice with families who are working through the intergenerational interdependency and moving from enmeshment or codependency over to interdependency and autonomy. And what happens, especially in scenarios where, say, the wife or the husband has more of that dynamic going. Let's say the wife has more codependency, enmeshment, and the husband has less. The husband is more autonomous. And so they're co-parenting with this awareness, this conscious parenting, and wanting to connect and support their children's autonomy to be more independent and autonomous. But there is this imbalance, loss of harmony, and loss for the parents. So what are your recommendations in those situations for the family?
Well, I think that every parent who wants to raise their children consciously has to go through a process of separation from old belief systems and decide in a conscious way what belief systems work for them. So in these kind of families, we are fed, spoon-fed how to believe, how to act, how to think, how to talk, and we're told that if you don't do this, you're not being a good person. This is not just in these cultures, it's all over the world.
Yes.
Now, what this does is that it doesn't allow the person to find who it is they are, right? As I said before. So the first step is discovering which belief systems serve us, truly serve who we are, not who we were meant to be because of our parents' fantasies of us.
Yes.
As we separate from this, we discover who it is we are. As we discover who it is we are, we become authentic. Then, being authentic is both knowing who it is we are, but also creating good boundaries and knowing our limits. Then we communicate this to our children. We get to know who it is they are, but also we have good, clear boundaries. So this is the process a person needs to go through in order to best relate to the spirit of the child without blindly recreating the patterns from the past, right? It takes effort from the parent to separate from what was and consciously choose a new path. That doesn't mean you separate from your family, but it does mean that you begin to operate from perhaps a new set of principles, and you may march to a different beat than what was expected from you. And hopefully your family can come along with you. But many times families get threatened and they don't want to come along with the new growth. And then the person who's changing feels scared because they don't want to be alone and alienated. And then they often regress and go back. So it's a push and pull. It takes a lot of effort. There's a price to pay for everything. There's a price to pay for being enmeshed. There's a price to pay for being individuated. It's just deciding what price you want to pay.
Wonderful. I think you have brilliantly brought up this focus on self-parenting ourselves, that we really need to stay focused on our wholeness and really getting really connected to our inner beauty, who we are as a person and our being. So when we feel our own well-being, then we're able to parent in a healthier way. Can you elaborate a bit more about that, please?
Well, we live in a culture where we're told that what we are is who we are, and what we are doing is who we are on the internal level. As a result of those messages, we constantly feel like we're not good enough. We need to do more, we need to achieve more, we need to produce more. And this leads us to have a really low sense of self. We're comparing ourselves with others, especially women. We're trying to compete with others, especially men and women. We're trying to be perfect. We're trying to overdo things, show off, compare, comparisons, competitiveness. When we operate from this mindset of inner lack and scarcity, obviously we're going to project this on those who are closest to us. We're going to put this attitude of lesser than onto our children, onto our spouses. If your child then is not performing at A+ level, or is not a super achiever, or is not making you feel amazing, you're going to project this sense of unworthiness on your child and begin to look at your child as a useless person, because that's how you feel inside. Therefore, the more you are connected to your inner state of wholeness, the more you will see wholeness in everybody outside. What is inside is put outside. How we view ourselves is how we're going to view the world. Simple. If you're going to judge yourself and critique yourself all the time, you're going to judge and critique the world all the time. So the more you are in a state of abundance yourself, the more you will be in a state of abundance toward your children.
Do you meditate every day?
Yes, I can't say I've meditated every single day of my life, but it is part of my just natural way of being. And I just taught a meditation class before this interview. So I try to teach meditation, I try and do seminars on it, and definitely practice it at least once a day. And even if I can't sit in formal stillness, I try to look outside and put my feet on the ground and enter the present moment, dip into myself. How am I feeling? What am I feeling right now? Am I good? Checking in all day long. The reason we do that is so that we are constantly on the pulse of our emotional baggage. So that, because if we don't stay on the pulse of it, it could erupt and come out, and we don't want that. We want to stay on. So if we're tired, go take care of yourself. If you're irritable, go inward and ask, why am I irritable? Because if you're irritable and you've been ignoring it all day, the moment your child comes home and does the first thing to annoy you, you're going to erupt. And then you're going to go, I was good till the child came home. No, you weren't good. You were bubbling over, but you weren't paying attention. So this is what it means to take responsibility and become aware of the energy and the baggage that you are sitting on.
Great. In learning more about peace learning parenting, or different practices, or how different parents have achieved peace learning, I've interviewed across generations, so intergenerational interviews. And oftentimes when I interview grandparents or great-grandparents, they will include in their interview that part of their peace learning experiences has included being selfless, making self-sacrifices, being the martyr, if you may, and not focusing so much on themselves. What do you think about that?
Well, so it's a misunderstanding, especially in cultures like ours, that if we focus too much on the self, we're selfish. Well, I'm not talking about getting massages, though there's nothing wrong with getting a massage, or simply talking about oneself. This is not about self-indulgence, it's about growth. Focus on your growth. Go meditate. Go take a nap if you're exhausted. Don't overdo the dinner every night because you want to get, you're a wonderful cook. Take care of what you can do, and do that with abundance, as opposed to trying to do it out of a fake desire to look good, to get approval, right? So it's a myth that people have that if I focus on my growth, I'm being self-indulgent or I'm being narcissistic. That's not true. You're being narcissistic when you pretend to be someone you're not,
Yes.
when you're trying to be a martyr but you're not, and then you're resentful at the other person because they didn't say thank you and kill themselves, in gratitude. That's a lie, and that's actually the most narcissistic thing to do, to expect someone to give you praise for someone that you're not authentically. My message is, how can you be authentic? How can you be your truest self and operate from that place? It's better to tell your spouse, you know what, I really don't like cooking, as opposed to cooking a fabulous meal and then being grumpy all day, right? Who needs that? So it's letting go of the image and truly doing what comes authentically to you.
Wonderful. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying in order to elevate and become more of a healthier well-being, a person with well-being, we need to have a strong connection to our inner self and inner desires, and to know who we are, and to not pay so much attention and be so distracted with the image that oftentimes the environment or the culture captivates or desires. Is that correct?
Absolutely. To be a good wife, to be
Yeah.
the perfect cook, to be the mother who makes organic food every day. It's okay if that's you naturally. But for the most part, these are things that we want to be because we believe it carries a certain weight. Why do you think women are always trying to shop more, dress better, put more makeup, get more Botox, and men are trying to get better careers and be more successful? Because we're all racing for the image,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How do we say, image is great if it comes easily, but I'm not going to do it at a sacrifice for my authentic self. If I, for example, every day had to care about how amazing my hair was, I would never do any interviews, right? At some point we have to say, I'm not going to care about the image, I'm just going to care about what comes authentically to me to live a glorious, joyous life. And forget the rest, right? But we're so caught up in image, so caught up in what other people think about us, that we stifle ourselves and actually are not happy. We're fake and we're really bitter because we feel like other people are robbing us, but we don't realize that we are giving them this power.
That's so inspiring, and it's liberating, right? I'm sure many of you parents who are watching, many of you moms and dads who are feeling bounded by those boundaries or cultural expectations, Dr. Shefali is giving you a permission. Here you have it, Dr. Shefali's recommendation. You need to let go, and you need to step out of those boundaries and get in touch with yourself. And really focus on the marker of success here being wholeness and your connection with your inner self, inner beauty, and who you are as a person and your well-being. Is that correct, Dr. Shefali?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, we got it.
This constant doing to a really authentic place, and you'll have to give up the applause and the medals and the certificates, but you're going to get something far better, which is your own sense of peace.
Yes. And I have been practicing this with our children. So we have 3 kids. The twins are in 3rd grade and our little one is in 1st grade. And so we have both been conscious of not paying so much attention on the achievements and really staying connected on what their inner passions are. There are times, though, that I have to say, for example, just the other day, our oldest daughter became very curious and interested in getting on the gymnastic team. And this is all on her own, talking to her friends and just getting excited about it. So I said, okay, well, we can explore and look into this a little bit more. And so we did go to this place where they hold these meetings, and she went there and she's really intrigued and very excited and very passionate, and she wants to do this. So as we are supporting her in this journey of gymnastics, we're bombarded with all the culture of competition, right? Having those messages thrown at her right and left. How do we protect them when they're in environments when we're no longer just the parents, that the coaches are parenting, the community is parenting, and the messages are all mixed?
just the nature of living, right? So we can't fight it, we can't get angry with it, we can't resist it. Otherwise, we should go live in a cave on a mountain. So this is life. Yes, there will be conflicting messages, but it's up to you to be clear about your message. And as long as you stay true and clear to your message, you'll at least be able to help navigate your children when they're being bombarded. But if you buy into that just because it's there, then you're not strong enough to know who it is you are. So I always say culture is not evil. Culture will do what culture does. We need to decide how we can act in strong, sometimes opposition to culture, or in strong separation from culture. Take a stand up to it. There's nothing to be afraid of. But most of the time, we are not clear about our own relationship with culture. And we feel like we should be part of culture. And we feel like we should belong in culture. And we have so many issues around being left out ourselves. That's where the conflict happens. If we are not invested in culture, culture will just be another noise. We'll be able to handle it and teach our children. But it's because we get caught up in culture that it becomes hard for us.
Interesting. So know culture, embrace culture, but also be very aware of your own boundaries and have awareness in when you're crossing those boundaries and when you choose to hold on to your boundaries. Is that
everyone
correct?
Is doing it. Just because everyone on your street is in the fair, on the street fair, doesn't mean you have to go if you're not feeling well.
Yeah.
So it's about really not being afraid to step out of the crowd, to stand against the crowd. But this takes a lot of inner awareness and presence and confidence to do that.
Yes. Okay. Well, we will keep on communicating those messages of inner peace and compassion, which takes me to my next question. In your opinion, what are the pillars of success or those markers of success for teaching compassion and empathy to our children?
Well, there are no markers of success because compassion and empathy is an evolution. It's a growing process. Just because a child is not showing compassion doesn't mean they're failing in any way, correct?
Okay.
It's a growing awareness. Some children are ready to do it fast because they're more sensitive, more attuned to other people's feelings. Some people don't have that muscle, right? And they need to develop that muscle. The ones who have it, they also have an issue. Sometimes they're too sensitive. Sometimes they're too attuned. Sometimes they're absorbing everyone else's energy. They're too empathic. They don't have boundaries. On the other hand, you have some kids who are not empathic at all. They just seem so into themselves. But the good thing of those kids is that they are boundaried. They know how to take care of their business, and they're not leaking all over the place. So both have their pluses and minuses. It's about developing the wholeness of the person. Those who are less empathic need to go on the spectrum a little bit more. Those who are too empathic may need to learn boundaries and become more, take more invested in their own self-care. So I don't glorify any of it. I just take the child as they are, understand it's a process. Where is the child right now and how can I embody it and help them inch forward? And then ultimately it's up to them if they want to exemplify compassion and empathy. For me, it's not a sign of greaterness or greater ethics, greater morality. For me, it's an evolution, and wherever the child is at, that's okay. Of course, we don't want the child to be mean and cruel and violent to the other person. But again, when you teach a child to stay connected to their heart, chances are they won't be violent and cruel to other people.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly, focusing on one's own sense of empathy and just modeling empathy within the relationship and really helping the child find their own attunement to what empathy and compassion is in regards to a relationship or a friendship they have. So for example, I work with children, and sometimes in working through conflict, a child comes in with more awareness and more ability to feel for the other friend than the other friend. So in that dynamic, when both kids are there, and it's almost like a mirroring experience where one is showing empathy and the other one perhaps is not there yet, but they're learning from the other child. How do we moderate or facilitate those connections?
But you can't, that's what I mean, you can't force it, right?
Yeah.
You can't force empathy. You can expose, you can create insight, you can say, does it feel good to you when when Sam is kind to you and Ella says, yes, I feel really good. Well, then Sam would feel so good if you were kind to them. But that's about it, right? You don't want the kid to be fake kind.
Yeah.
You don't want them to share all their toys when they actually don't want to share, because then you're teaching them to not have good boundaries. And how many adults do you know who have terrible boundaries in the name of being compassionate and empathic?
Yeah.
So there's no point in doing it if it truly doesn't come from inside. But I'm not talking about basic niceness. Of course, we don't want our children to go about, breaking people's things, but that'll only happen in extreme situations anyway. I believe for the most part, parents are raising well-mannered, good enough children. And what we're not raising good enough, perhaps, is children who are attuned to who it is they are, who feel safe to express their feelings no matter what they are, and courageous to express themselves as they are.
So allowing children to move within their own pace of self-exploration, being attuned to them as well as them being attuned to themselves, and creating that peaceful space where they can explore, be curious, and become more aware of their emotions and their feelings.
I think so, because when they are, so say Ella was not being compassionate, but then you can tap into Ella's feelings. Ella, when Sam was mean to you, how did you feel? When Sam was nice to you, how did you feel? And when you help the kid to tap into their own feelings, that's when you open them up, perhaps, to expressing, joy and compassion to others.
Okay, so I'm just thinking about a situation the other day with our children. There was a conflict between our two girls, the sisters, and both of them were right. They both had a legitimate reason why they were feeling anger towards each other. And as much as I really wanted them to work it out and, be able to have that interaction where they become more aware of each other's feelings, it escalated to the point where I had to step in and I had to come and say, well, why don't you two just take a deep breath, go separate, go take a break, and then we can come back to this and see what happened. Do you have any suggestions for sibling rivalry or when situations like that happen and come up for parents? What can parents do so they're practicing conscious parenting?
Well, I think it's, again, not getting enmeshed in your child's feelings and wanting peace and harmony because you think that's better, is allowing children to have conflict, not feeling perturbed on the inner level that they don't talk to each other for a day. It's actually healthy that they're on their own. Valuing autonomy, valuing separation and good boundaries, valuing taking a time out. But we have been raised and conditioned to value enmeshment, be together, be happy, be nice. And, in doing that, we create more stress and anxiety.
Got it. Okay, so allow for that healthy separation and individuation when you have those moments, those opportunities, and really go with that flow. Yeah, I've noticed when I do that consciously, everything runs much smoother and well-being is experienced as opposed to anxiety when I am in the mode of, I guess, yes.
Which is really controlling and fixing your own helplessness, right? You want silence and peace.
Yes.
That's why you can't tolerate something that's very natural between siblings.
Yes. Another issue that comes up, it's not an issue, but just I'm curious about, is parenting children with different temperaments. So we have 3 different temperaments with our children. And I noticed that some of those tendencies sometimes lead to disconnect, where it's hard to navigate through those relationships when you're pressed on time and when your schedule is busier than usual, which is not unusual here in Los Angeles, as you know.
Well, I think every child has different temperaments. Every single human being has a different temperament. There is no such thing as, we're all the same. There's just no such thing. So now you, as a parent of a couple kids with different temperaments, you have to create the elasticity in your schedule. Yes, I've had parents tell me, what you're suggesting will take so much time, I'll have to get up at 5 in the morning. I go, okay, there's a price to pay for having, a gaggle of children. It's going to take time and effort. Everything has a price. You have 1 kid, there's a price. You have 3 kids, there's a price. We don't want to pay the price. We just want the prize, right? We don't want the price. So this is just our immaturity. You know, every kid is different. You have to create the elasticity and the space and time in your schedule. You have to kind of grow up, adult up, and kind of do what needs to be done to raise these children. They are not going to cooperate. They are not going to fall in line. They are going to be messy and confused and inconsistent and forgetful. This is the nature of children. This is the nature of many children. So what did we expect, right? What did we expect?
That's right. So that's a good reminder. And I know at times when I meditate and take those time out for myself to get centered and get connected to my wholeness, that it becomes really clear. And then there are times when in the midst of busyness, I lose insight. And those are the moments where, you know, I have to go back and repair and recover from those interactions. But it's good to be aware. And I think for those of you parents who feel the tension, the stress during the day, you know, there's so many times during the day that I feel I could have done a better job. And I don't know if you can relate to this, Dr. Shefali, that we have to just take a step back, take a deep breath, get centered, and get back into it.
Exactly. It's a new moment, a new moment, a new moment. You know, not to presume that we're not going to mess up. We're going to mess up every day, but it's about being able to let go, detach, and start again. Start again.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about your book, The Awakened Family. I know that that conscious connection, or your suggestion to step back and not be so enmeshed with your children and not be so enmeshed with your unrealistic expectations, that seems to be part of this evolution and moving forward and evolving as a parent. Can you explain a bit more on who's the Awakened Family and what are some small steps that parents who are watching now can take to join this evolution with you?
Well, I think the Awakened Family is one where everyone's sense of self is honored, and we don't want to be one big moving, you know, mass. We want to be not disconnected. We want to be together, but each one is very grounded in who it is they are, and they don't have to become someone for somebody else. That to me would be the hallmark of an awakened family, where each one is unafraid to own who it is they are and feel safe to express that in the home.
Wonderful. And you have encouraged this through, I know, events. I know you have an event coming up, the Evolve event, and you have invited parents who are interested and curious to join this journey with you. Can you say a little bit more about this event, when it's going to be, and how?
Sure. You know, so
can
I
join?
take the consciousness of my own parenting very seriously, and I take the consciousness of parents in general very seriously. And we cannot become conscious if we don't do the work, right? We have to learn. We have to dive deep. We have to invest the time and energy. So I created this event called Evolve the Conscious Way. Last year I was in LA, and this year it's in New York next month. And people are coming from all over the world. This morning someone said they're flying in from Ethiopia, London, California, Toronto, Vancouver, Mexico. So parents are coming from all over the world because they understand that they need to take this very seriously. And being together in a group of people, all with one mission to awaken, is their commitment to their children. So this is the best gift to give your children. Once a year, take the time to truly go deep into the parental psyche and understand where it is that you're messing up your kid and how to resolve it. Does it take an investment? Yes. Does it take a sacrifice? Every parent is leaving their kid and coming. But you're going to return a better parent. So what could be a better gift than that? So there are limited scholarships available if they write to office@drshefali.com, and they can engage in this rich dialogue and journey of becoming more awakened by seeing us all in New York City. So I hope some of your audience will come.
I hope so. It is truly one of those life-changing events. I know many parents who have attended your previous events, and they have been awakened. I personally was really touched and awakened when I came to your talk. in June when we met, and you really have that gift of making shifts in one's psyche and one's consciousness. And it's beautiful. It's such a gift, and I think for you to be able to give this gift to the world and our next generation must be very fulfilling.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's people like you who, without whom I cannot do anything. So it's the support of everybody that's going to take this message forward. Parents who truly want to do the best for their children, who are willing to take the time and invest in the commitment it takes to change. It's so hard to change. So my invitation is always to come on, let's transform. I do courses and webinars and teachings all over the world and online to help people awaken. So thank you so much for supporting this message and for spreading it and for everything you do as well.
Thank you. It's an honor. Now let's shift gears just a little bit. Did you watch the debates last night?
Yes, I did.
And what did you think of it?
Well, we can't get political, but it's very clear that there are different levels of consciousness, even at least in conversation. People may malign someone's character, but at least you have to look at the words they say. And if at least the words they say are at least trying to be more conscious, we have to give credit versus words that are clearly inflammatory and unconscious. So, it's indicative of what's happening in America. There are different levels of consciousness, what happens in a family. And let's see how this plays out, right? What is coming forward is a representation of what happens in families, in cultures, in the country. So we're going to see how this, not who wins, but where the balance falls,
Yeah. And, I've seen it as an opportunity in our family to focus on empathy and compassion and really to take a step back from demonizing, what we don't like or think is wrong, and to really become more conscious of, okay, well, we can use this opportunity, we can really dive into this opportunity from a compassionate lens and see how we can help each other, how we can bring more peace into our environments and community, as opposed to, falling into the unconscious trap and losing consciousness.
Yeah, it's so easy to do though, right?
Yeah, it's so easy.
It's ready-made. So, I think with everything in life, we have to ask ourselves, well, what does this say about me? What does this mean for me? What action can I take to contribute towards the light that I feel I'm not seeing? What words can I say to people to balance out what I'm not liking outside? So it's one thing to not like it, but it's another thing to create the change to oppose it or to create the balance, right? We don't want to do that. Who's going to do it? Who's going to create the balance? It's us. In anything in life, if we don't like somebody being poor, we have to help them achieve wealth. If we don't like the fighting in our home, we can't blame the kid and fight with them. We have to take responsibility. So same with politics. If we don't like something on TV, we can take charge. We can speak up, own it, go vote, become agents of change in our own life. But sitting placidly on a couch and complaining and whining and complaining and whining is just exactly the same energy that we say we don't like.
Exactly. So becoming more conscious, aware, engaged, and true to ourselves, being more genuine about who we are and our voice and taking action. That is a great advice. Dr. Shefali, in regards to peace learning parenting, my passion, can you tell us about your upbringing and how your parents were with you and what you learned from your mom and dad growing up? I'm very curious because you seem to be one of those top, like really high people in this journey of awakened families and practicing peace learning. So what was your upbringing like and your parenting as well as how you were parented?
Sure. So I'm not up in any way, but constantly learning and striving. I think I was blessed that I had parents who were very unconditionally supportive of me. So they didn't try too hard to change me, but they did try a little, and that's where the culture came in. They did get seduced by culture about how a girl should be and a woman should be and what age I should get married. And that's why I talk about culture a lot, because culture can seduce a very good parent into stifling their child, even though that's the last thing the parent wants to do. So I had to teach my parents how to fight culture so that I could survive. That was hard for me to do. You know, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to displease them, and they didn't want to displease me. So it was this culture that was holding the puppet strings on both of us and making us unhappy. And then finally, when I came to America and I became more of me, that I could go back and tell my parents, no, you know, you cannot fall for culture. That does not match me, and you got to listen to me. And I was lucky to have parents who were open and spacious enough from within, secure enough from within, that they could hear me, and they did not feel like my sense of self was going to threaten them in any way, right? Their reputation. So I was blessed all around, but there were snags, even though they were so well-meaning, right? So in my own parenting now, I'm very aware of how culture influences me, and I'm very aware of how I am falling prey of these ideals, because very often they clash against the present moment, they clash against the authentic nature of our children, and they cause so much strife and anxiety in us because we feel like they should follow the way. So I'm very aware now of there is no the way. Every child carves their way, and my job on earth as their parent is to usher them toward finding their way. Even if their way is against my way, even if it's against my culture's way, it's okay. They're not here to follow a way. They are here to follow the way of their spirit. Yes, living on this earth, yes, there is a way to behave. You have to get up in the morning, you have to brush your teeth, you have to go to school, sure. But in terms of their expression of who it is they are, they need to work in accordance to that. They cannot become someone for me just to please me or my culture.
Yes. Yes, very good point. Oftentimes when I'm talking to parents, I say, well, take a deep breath, take a step back, and just ask yourself this question. First of all, you know, touch base with your needs. So whose needs are being met?
Yes. Yes.
And if it's your needs versus the child's needs, then that's always a good indication that you need to make certain shifts.
Yes.
And move towards the right direction, right? And also emotions. Emotions are gifts. You know, we oftentimes, especially in certain cultures, you know, I know my cultural heritage, especially being a woman, you know, emotions are repressed oftentimes, and men. And I think when we're not in touch with our awareness of our emotions and don't utilize them in a way to bring us more awareness and making right decisions and moving forward in our connections and relationships, that oftentimes leads to moving away from light. And so it's good to be reminded of those.
Completely, you know, that's where boundaries and being authentic comes into play, and being aware moment by moment, so you don't put your stuff on other people and your children and treat them like puppets, right?
Yes.
They are not your puppet.
Yes, yes, amen to that. So your children are not your puppets. Moms and dads, madaran and pedaran aziz, we're coming to the end of the show. Any last words of wisdom for our families who are watching you from all the way from Iran, from Canada? Will you be traveling to the Middle East for any upcoming conferences or seminars, Dr. Shefali?
No, I'm not, but that would be fabulous.
I wish, yes. Maybe we can set that up.
Let's do it.
Yes, yes. You are such a gem.
Oh, thank you. I just think that, you know, we're so driven by fear.
Yes.
And we want approval, we want to fit in, we want to belong. And we just need to recognize that and learn to let go of that a little bit and have faith in who it is we are. And that it's far more important to be authentic than it is to be fake for the sake of fitting in, you know? And I think in these cultures, as yours, as mine, we forget who we are because of that fear.
Yes.
So I encourage parents to not only not be fearful, but also not raise their children in fear.
Excellent. Beautiful closing words and remarks. We love you, Dr. Shefali.
Thank you.
You are such a gem in the MomTalk and the world community, and we are so proud and honored to have connected with you today.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.